Hey everyone, we are 2 weeks. Wow, that's 3 fingers. You think that that I would do better? Anyway, hey everyone, we are a couple of weeks into our Fruit of Faith series. Although on my notes I was telling Pierce it looks like I wrote down Fruit of Faith, which sounds really like Star Wars or Star Trek kind of. I don't know. I was never a Star Trek guy. Anyway, side note: I've been spending too much time around paint today. My head's like weird, but. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about this past Sunday. You'll remember, here was our theology. It was kind of long, but it was faith in God is the means by which righteousness is given, hope is awakened, and blessing is received. The faith that we have in God, and this is something that we've really emphasized over the last year, the faith that we have in God is absolutely what determines our righteousness. Because it's not based off of our works. It's not based off of what we've done at all. It is based off of who Christ is, what God has declared about Christ, and our faith ultimately is in God, who has sent his son, Jesus, to die for us. And so when we're looking at the gospel story, when we're looking at Jesus as Savior, as God, as Creator, who died on the cross, who was raised from the dead, we are looking in that and we are saying, I believe this is true. I believe that this is real. I believe that that in this is life. I believe that Christ died for me, that his blood atoned for my sins. I believe that his resurrection means there's a promise in that of resurrection for me. And when we believe that, when our faith rests in that, then we are made righteous. And so also, though, because there's the promise of resurrection, because there's the hope of glory, we have hope awakened in us. Like this world, left just to this world with no hope of a future, with no hope of God, this world is fairly bleak. I don't know if you've paid attention at all to the last year of our country, and just I don't know, like I see people like leaving Facebook in droves because they're just tired of the articles. I only go to Facebook to post my art anymore, just because it's just melancholy. Like, you get tired of it. Are you tired of it yet? Are you tired of the news articles and the news stories, and every time you turn on your TV, or does anybody read a paper anymore? Is it all digital? Like, it's just heavy. And isn't it great to know that this world is not our home? That God's going to make all things new, that our hope is in him, and our faith is in that. And because we have faith in the coming of Jesus and the return of Christ and the new heavens and the new earth, what we talked about last month, because we have hope in that, it gives us the ability to face life here on this earth in this day as strangers and aliens, just I hate to say biding our time, because that's not really what we're doing. We're actively pursuing God, but waiting for the moment that God will be revealed, waiting for that moment. And then we also receive blessing in God. Do you remember from Hebrews 11:6? Without faith, it is impossible to please God. For anyone who comes to him must first of all believe that he exists. Second of all, that he rewards those who diligently seek him. And there is reward in knowing God. Our faith provides for us reward and blessing. We have been blessed, Ephesians 1 says, with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places. Romans chapter 8 says that we are heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ, that what Christ has received from God, we receive from God. We see a parallel, or that similar idea, over in Isaiah 53. And we see that Christ comes and that he receives his reward, and then he distributes reward and blessing to those who followed him. And so, like, our faith for us, it's the whole deal, man. Like, it's righteousness and holiness, and it's hope for a future, and it's blessing and reward. Like, our faith in God is a good thing, and we need to keep that in mind. So our application this past week was what we believe about God and eternity will determine our today. What we believe about God and eternity will absolutely determine our today. And if somebody believes that there is no hope, there's no future, there's no life, there isn't anything after this life, that changes how they act. When we say, man, I believe in God, I believe that after this life comes another life. When we say, I believe that Christ loved me so much that he gave himself up for me, that changes how we act. When we better understand God's love for us, it stirs up in us love for him. It's what 1 John 4 means when it says we love because he loved us first. That our love for God is a response out of understanding how deeply he loves us. Our prayer this past week was, God, give us a desire to know you more fully so that our lives can better bring you glory. this idea, I love in Ephesians 1, and I always forget what verses they are, but I think it's like verses 16 through 18, where Paul is praying for the church in Ephesus, and he says, my desire is that the eyes of your heart would be opened, that the eyes of your heart would be enlightened so that you can see who God is, so that you can come to this knowledge of who God is. And my goodness, like that's what I want for you. That's what I want for me. Don't hear me say this, that just because I'm a preacher, I feel like I've gotten it, like that I have enough. That, all right, God, I've kind of, reached the epiphany and the apex of who I want to be. Like, no, I want to know God more. Right now, I want to see him more. I want to enjoy him more. There are things in my life. I definitely don't live in depression like I did in my college years. But I will tell you that I have to overcome and battle worry too often. And I'm wanting to understand better who God is every day in my life, so that worry and fear and those things just fade into the distance, that they're just crushed by the beauty of who God is. And this faith we have in God, this knowledge we have of God, it changes us. And it moves us away from sin, and it moves us more into the likeness of Christ, and it brings us into fellowship with the Father, and it causes us to see people differently and enjoy them more richly and love them more fully. And I'm just telling you, like, as we come to better understand God, all of these things change. Now, we looked this past week, and I'm running out of time, but we looked this past week at Noah and Abraham and Moses. And so Noah, his faith in God was that there's a coming judgment. God said there's a judgment coming. Noah believed him, and it changed Noah's behavior. God said build an ark, and Noah did. Abraham, it said that when God called him away from his land and his family and his kind of lineage to a new place that he was going, it was because he was looking for a city whose building and architect was God. He was looking towards the promised land. And then Moses forsook being called the son of Pharaoh's daughter because he was looking forward to the reward in Christ, which was greater than all the treasures of Egypt. And we use these kind of three guys as examples of how we know that there's a judgment coming. We know that there is a heavenly kingdom. We know that there's blessing in God. And if these are things that you don't know yet, like you're not really convinced of it yet, please let's visit. Let's talk about it, okay? Because God is worth knowing. And faith in him will absolutely shift our perspective on our day-to-day. Here are the three questions I want you to consider for this week. Ask them of your friends and your family. Discuss them with one another. And let this kind of be a way that you can digest this. Number one, do you have a friend who is highly motivated in any of these three areas, the area of finance or fitness or diet? Do you have a friend like that that's just, they're just crushing it in one of these areas, or maybe all these areas? They just are incredibly driven to eat well all the time, or to eat certain foods, or avoid Wendy's. Wendy's is our go-to now on Sunday evenings. Is that like what is it? Do you have a friend that's driven in that area? Question two: what belief system differs between you and them? So what is it? What is it that's different between you and your friend that causes you guys to land in different places? I'll give you an example. I have several friends who have dietary restrictions, and so they're really careful about what they eat, because quite honestly, if they're not careful about what they eat, they get really sick. And so their mind is, if I eat these things that Ryan's eating, I'm going to get really sick. And I don't have that belief system. And because I don't have that belief system, I don't get sick when I eat those things. And so because I don't, it's not shifting how I eat. But if I was getting sick from the same foods, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? What is it that differs between their view of the world and your view of the world that causes you guys to have gone different ways? Question three, because I think we do this a lot. We look at somebody else and they go, oh yeah, but they're more disciplined than me, or they're more dedicated than me. Question three, why do we view Bible characters as having different faith than our own? Why do we look at guys like Noah and Abraham and Moses and go, yeah, but those guys were people in the Bible. Like, they're just people. They're just people who believed God. Why do we tend to look at those guys and say, yeah, but they're different? So think on that. That one's really important. Think on that question. Talk about it amongst yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.